without further ado, let's get stuck into this lesson today. So we need to talk about the metric system. This is our system. We learned that the Americans and a few other countries have the imperial system, but most of the people in the world work with the metric system. All right, it's a good system. It's clean. It's efficient. We need to learn how to use it. And in last week's lessons, you heard me referring to the fact that if you're converting between the metric and the imperial, like for example, if you want to go from meters to yards or meters to feet, from metric to imperial or backwards again, then they have to give you the formula. But this week in the metric system, you guys have to know the metric system. All right, so these conversions within the metric system are not going to be given to you in the exam. So you have to know them off by heart. And they're real easy, not that difficult. The metric system is very easy to learn. The imperial, completely backwards. But the metric is real easy to learn. So we're going to go through the metric system today, and we're going to do a little practice with converting within the metric system. You're probably going to find it quite easy, which is good. It's normal to feel that this is easy. You shouldn't have an issue with these kind of questions in any test or exam that you are given. Okay, so let's get started. So we have the first unit of measurement there on the screen. The first unit of measurement we're going to talk about is length. Sometimes it's distance, sometimes it's distance traveled. They use many different words to describe it, but basically you need to understand it as length or distance. Okay, and within the metric system, our basic unit of measurement is obviously the meter. Okay, so the standard unit that we work with is the meter. So I'm going to write in here for the standard unit. Wait. My letters are disappearing. Oh, there's ghosts in the system. All right, I'm going to have to shut this down quickly and then boot it up again. Oh, there we go. You see, my laptop is even complaining of the heat. It's tired. Let's try again. All right, let's try again. All right, the meter. Okay. And we all know that the symbol for meter is M. So I'm going to write here next to it in brackets M, but you all, I'm sure, are aware of that. Okay. So now underneath here, we're going to talk about the scale, the length or distance scale. All right. And I've got there an M and a KM on the board. And I'm sure we all know that if the standard unit of measurement for length is meter, which is this one over here, then this one with the km, which is a bigger unit of measurement, a longer unit of measurement, must be kilometers. Okay, I want to move down this way. All right, so I'm looking for a unit of measurement that is smaller than meters. I'm sure you guys can give me 2. Maybe 3. There is a third. I'm interested to see if someone will give me a third. But if you can put in chat units of measure that are smaller than meters. Kira, well done. Millimeters.
We have a question from Ompile that says, "Sir, please repeat what STD stands for."
Ah, good question. All right. It's an abbreviation for standard. Okay, so STD is standard unit. The standard unit. Okay, so the standard unit for length is going to be meters. We're going to work around the standard unit of meters. So the smaller units, very good, Vuyo. Okay, so Vuyo's got a scale. And yes, answers are coming through centimeters and millimeters. Very good. So if I jump to the left here, which is smaller than meters, then we can put here cm for centimeters. Does anyone know what centi actually stands for? I'll be very interested to know if anyone in chat knows what the word centi stands for, because it's centimeters. Centimeters. I wonder if anyone in chat knows what this word here in the front, centi, means. inch. Kagiso, you thinking about imperial. 100, very good. Who said 100? Iklumile, well done. 100, very good. Centi means 100, okay? Think of the word centenary or century, all right? It's also got that word in it. So centi means 100, which is actually important because, well, we'll talk about it now. Let's go even further to the left, okay? And I heard people talking about it in chat. A unit of measurement that is smaller than meters and smaller than centimeters is millimeters. All right, millimeters. Okay, so we've got 4 there. Just as a matter of interest, I'm just curious. We're not going to work with it today, but just as a matter of interest, does anyone know what is smaller than millimeters? Anyone in chat? Anyone in chat, can you tell me a unit that you know of that is smaller than millimeters? You don't work with it in math literacy, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, but there is something smaller than millimeters. Does anyone know? Just as a matter of interest. mg, that's milligrams. Inch is also still in the imperial system, so we're working only in the metric. Anyone know anything smaller than millimeters? All right, I'm going to tell you. All right, there is a unit smaller than this, which is called micrometers, okay? Micrometers, which is like 1,000th of a millimeter. But we don't have to worry about micrometers. If you're a scientist, then you can work in micrometers, especially under a microscope. But we don't have to worry about that. We just have to worry about these 4 here, okay? Millimeters, centimeters, meters, which is the standard unit, and then kilometers, okay? Micrometers, all right. So all we need to know is the standard unit, what's bigger than the standard unit, and what's smaller than the standard unit. Okay, now we need to work between these units. We need to go up into a bigger unit and down into a smaller unit. So the length one is a good one to start with because we deal with this often. In fact, in class, if you have a ruler, if you have a standard 30-centimeter ruler, this can be quite easy for you. So let's go from meters to centimeters. Okay, so we want to go from meters to centimeters. Here's the question. If I have 1 meter, how many centimeters are in that 1 meter? All right. If you can put in chat, let's see who's fast with the fingers today. How many centimeters in 1 meter? The clue was in the name. Very good, 100. Okay, good, 100. So centi means 100. There are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So if I want to go from 1 meter to centimeters, if I have 1 meter, and I want to know how many centimeters that is, what calculation will I have to do? This 1 has to get bigger. It has to become 100. So we are going to multiply, and give it well done, multiply by 100. Okay. So in this little arrow here in my diagram, I'm going to say times 100. Right. To go from 1 meter into centimeters, we need to times by 100. Okay. I'm going to move this whole thing down and you'll see why in a moment. Shift it down slightly. Now, I want to go from centimeters to millimeters. We all have this on our ruler. You can actually count the millimeters in a centimeter. We know that there are 10 millimeters for every 1 centimeter. So to go from 1 centimeter to millimeters, I times that by 10. Okay. And then to go from meters all the way to millimeters, all right, that big jump. How many millimeters are there? Well, 100. All right. And the times 10 together will make 1,000. So we have 3 zeros here under this arrow, 1, 2, 3, and there are 3 zeros there on top. Okay, so it's 1,000 millimeters in every 1 meter. Okay, now let's go from kilometers to meters. All right, kilometers to meters. we know that there are also 1,000 meters for every kilometer. So I'm just going to write here quickly before I answer Kamal. All right, Kamal, you raised your hand. Do you want to turn your microphone on and ask? Do you have a question?
I wanted to say that kilometers to meters is 1,000 meters in kilometers.
Very good. Very good. There's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So to change our 1 kilometer into meters, we have to times that 1 by 1,000. So if you have 1 kilometer, you're going to have to times it by 1,000 to get meters. Okay, so we're going to multiply it. So we'll get 1,000 meters. Okay, I'm sure we're all aware of these conversions now. Okay, and the metric system is so easy to convert with. We just work with the thousands. All right, these groups of 1,000. So these big jumps here are big jumps of 1,000 every time. So from meter to kilometer it's 1,000. Sorry, from kilometer to meter it's 1,000, and from meter to millimeter it's 1,000. But the distance unit of measurement does have the small little jump, all right, because we also talk about centimeters. And so we have to also know how to go from meters to centimeters and centimeters to millimeters, and then the whole big jump of 1,000 as well. So if you can remember this diagram, it's real easy to understand. If we're jumping from a big unit of distance, a long distance like kilometers, and we want to go to a smaller one, we're going to times. Okay, now let's talk about if we want to go from a small one to a big one. Well, we just do the opposite. So if we have to times by 10 to go from centimeters to millimeters, we have to divide by 10 to go from millimeters to centimeters. So if you have 10 millimeters, you must divide by 10 to get to centimeters, and you'll find that you'll have 1 centimeter. Okay, so when we're going from a smaller unit of measurement to a bigger unit of measurement, we have to divide. Okay, and from centimeters to meters, again, we're going to divide by 100. And the big jump, like we saw above, if we're going from millimeters to meters, we need to divide by 1,000. Then from meters to kilometers, from smaller unit to bigger units, again, we need to divide this by 1,000. Okay, so you could actually draw this diagram. You start with the standard unit, which is the meters, and then you can go smaller and times, or you can go up to a bigger unit and divide. Okay, and I know you guys know maybe, yes, sure.
Ompile in the chat says you are going way too fast and they are lost, and then somebody else asked that you please repeat.
Okay, I'll do it all again for you guys. Not a problem. Let's do it again quickly. All right. So I'm sure that we're all aware of these units: kilometers, meters, centimeters, millimeters. Okay. I'm going to start actually from kilometers this time. And I want to go from kilometers to meters, from a bigger unit of distance. A kilometer is big. And to go to a smaller unit of distance, a meter is a lot smaller than that. If you're going from a big one to a small one, you're going to have to times. Okay. And the jump from kilometers to meters, you have to times by 1,000. Then let's do meters to millimeters. Okay, this jump is similar. From meters to millimeters, we also have to times. We're going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit. We also have to times by 1,000. So there are 1,000 millimeters in every 1 meter. So here's an example. To change 1 meter into millimeters, I have to times, because I'm going from a bigger unit down to a smaller one. I have to times by, and the jump is 1,000. So I have to times by 1,000. So the answer will be 1,000 millimeters. Okay. All right. So if you're going from a bigger unit of measurement down to a smaller one, you have to times. let's go from meters to centimeters. If you know that there are 100 centimeters in every meter, then when you go down from meters to centimeters, you must times by 100. And if you go down again from centimeters to a smaller unit, millimeters, you have to times again, but this time we know there are only 10 millimeters in every 1 centimeter. Okay. Now, if we want to work the other way, all right, let's say, for example, they say 50 millimeters. Convert that into centimeters, all right? From millimeters to centimeters, we're working in the opposite direction. We're going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit. Instead of timesing now, we need to divide. And the jump is how big? It's 10. So for 50 millimeters, I will have to divide by 10. I want to cut the 50 up into groups of 10, and how many I have? It's 5. So it's 5 centimeters. So when we're going from a smaller to a bigger unit of length, we have to divide. And from centimeters to meters, we have to divide by 100. Now, the big jump from millimeters to meters, just like the top is 1,000, but this time we are jumping by divide by 1,000. And it's similar from meters to kilometers. Again, it's a big jump. We have to divide by 1,000. So if you remember, from big unit down to small one, you have to times. And from small unit up to the big one, you have to divide. Okay, now we've got 2 other units of measurement we're going to cover. You're going to see the same process happening again. The only difference between length and the other 2 we're going to do is centimeters over here. Okay, I'll show you. I'm going to come back to this. So you can also, if you're not sure yet about this diagram, they put the video of the lesson up on YouTube, and you can go back to this portion and pause it and have a look at the diagram and draw it out yourself. It helps to draw it out yourself, and you can learn this diagram because you need to know the metric system off by heart. All right, Tila, you have a question. Please turn your microphone on. Tell us. What can we help you with?
Hello.
Hi, Oratilia, how are you?
I just got in, so I don't understand. May you please repeat what you said? I'm
Okay.
good. Sorry for not asking. I
Okay.
just got in right now because like.
Okay, all right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to wait for the video to come out, okay? Because I need to move on to the next ones. So I'm going to ask you to wait for the YouTube video to come out. It usually comes out about 6 days after the lesson, all right? But have a look at the screen there. And when I go to the next unit of measurement, you're going to see something very, very similar. So this will make sense while I'm doing the next 2. Okay, I'm going to move down to the next 2. And the top one will make more sense. Okay. Yes.
We have a question in the chat from Mpo. They
Yeah.
are asking, so sir, can you go from centimeter to kilometer?
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Very good question. Okay. You can go from centimeters to kilometers. Now, I'll show you.
Okay, sir.
In fact, I'm going to show you just now in the question, because there's a question coming up exactly like that. And I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to show you how it works. All right. Yes, you can. You see how I did the meters to centimeters jump, all right? From meters to centimeters was a jump of 100. And then from centimeters to millimeters was a jump of 10. All right. Well, 10 times 100 is 1,000. Okay, that's a clue. That's a clue. So if you want to go from centimeters to kilometers, how big is the jump from centimeters to meters? All right. Well, centimeters to meters is 100, and from meters to kilometers is 1,000. So then how big will the jump be from centimeters all the way to kilometers? You can find that by saying 100 times 1,000. Okay. You divide by 100 times 1,000. So you're going to divide by 100 times 1,000. It's a huge number. Okay, but I'm going to do this example later on. There's a question on this. I'm going to come back to this exact method. Okay, let me move on to the other two units of measurement because we can't do the questions until we've had a look at these. All right, so now we have mass, okay, or weight. All right, if you speak to people in physics, they will shout at you, don't talk about mass and weight in the same sentence, but let's just call it mass for today. All right, now the standard unit of mass is grams. Okay, so this here is the standard unit of mass. Just like meters was the standard unit for length, grams are the standard unit, is the standard unit for mass. So we're going to write here grams. That's the standard unit. And the symbol is a G. We all know the unit. And here you can see I've already drawn this diagram. And we have 4 units of measurement here. Now, 3 are very common. You've probably seen them before and maybe even dealt with them before. So we have grams, the standard one. Okay. Then smaller than grams is milligrams. Now, I don't know if you remember what we just dealt with. Remember, we had meters. Yes, we had centimeters in between, but what was below centimeters? Millimeters. Okay, now what do you notice that's the same? Well, the letter in front of the G is a little m. Okay, so it's milligrams and millimeters. Okay, so those two go together. And if you remember with distance, 1 up from meters was kilometers. Well, guess what? 1 up from grams is kilograms. Okay, so the only difference between the distance scale and the mass scale, like I mentioned, is centimeters. We don't have something here, centigrams. We don't talk about centigrams, okay? So the distance scale has the strange unit that we do need to look at, which is centimeters, but otherwise, the rest are all very similar. Okay, so we just have a look at the diagram. I'm going to do it with you now. So if we go from grams to milligrams, we're going from a bigger unit of measurement down to a smaller unit of measurement. All right, milligrams are very small, and the jump is 1,000. Okay, and if we go up from grams to kilograms, the jump is 1,000. But if I go up, I'm going to divide by 1,000. Okay, so the arrows will show you in which direction you need to move, and the sum at the top there or at the bottom shows you what calculation you need to do. But if you go from a bigger to a smaller, you must multiply, and you go from a smaller to a bigger, you must divide. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what's this thing at the end here? Well, that's tons. Okay, 1,000 kilograms is 1 tons. We're talking about the weight of big cars now. Okay, elephants and cars, big things, tons. All right, so 1,000 kilograms is 1 ton. So I've included the ton here in this scale for mass because it can sometimes come up in a question. So you do need to be familiar with it. Okay. Are there any questions with the gram scale? You see, it's very similar to distance except for centimeters. That's the only difference between these two scales. All right, we even have milli, the word milli. We have kilo again, and grams is the standard one, just like meters was the standard one. All right, now when I move on to the third one, it's going to be even more easy. It's going to make a lot more sense now. Okay, so let's have a look at the third unit of measurement that we often deal with. All right. Now, this is called capacity. Yes, there's someone that raised a hand. Please turn on your microphone. Talk to us. Angasi Melani, did you raise your hand? You want to ask a question? All right. Yes, guys. I see people raising their hands. Guys, if you've raised your hand, please turn your microphone on. You're welcome to speak to us and ask the question. Don't be shy.
Can you please make an example of each so that I can understand?
Oh, you're very, very soft. We can barely hear you. You might need to talk a bit louder.
Say,
Yes.
can you make an example of each, like, of measurement in this so that I can understand it?
Okay, you haven't done it yet. Yes. Okay, good point. All right. So the curriculum that we are following is not exactly the same as the CAPS document. And also every school is different in the curriculum that they start with. So some schools might start with measurements, some schools might start with patterns and relationships. Some schools might start with basic number skills, okay? And because it's a grade 10 and 11 lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to work mostly on the grade 11 curriculum in term 1, because the skills that we use in the grade 11 curriculum, you guys will be practicing in grade 10 as number skills. Okay, so we are actually using the number skills in the curriculum of measurements. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to deal with measurement, and in dealing with the measurement section, you're going to pick up a lot of the skills that you're going to be taught at the beginning of the year in grade 10. Then after you dealt with number skills in grade 10, you're going to move on to the topics like measurement, patterns and relationships, finance maybe. Some schools even start with finance. So we're going to start with measurement because it's a very big section. It's actually one of the most difficult sections in the exam. So we wanted to start with this one. And usually the courses are the courses are 2 weeks long, but we're making the measurement section 3 weeks long. Okay, so we're starting with measurement and we're going to build up this measurement section. We might even need to come back to it at the end of the year just to revise before exams. So yes, it might be a little bit confusing. There are grade 10s and 11s in this group, and the grade 10s are going to have to listen very carefully. But please, if you don't understand something while I'm explaining, please put it in chats, raise your hand, and we'll try our best to answer any question that we have. Okay, so it might seem unfamiliar. Some schools do start with this, some schools don't, but I promise you this section will definitely be covered in term 1. So we need to definitely do this section in term 1. All right, we're going to do patterns and relationships after this, which is a little bit easier. A lot of people find this measurement section difficult, so we're going to start when everyone's fresh at the beginning of the year. We're going to start with this section. Okay. No, Courtney, it's not grade 10 only, it's grade 10 and 11. All right, it's a combined class. And you know what? This class has grown very fast since the beginning of last week. There's a lot more students now, so we're trying our best to accommodate all. In fact, you'll see later on when we go down to the questions, I'll show you an example over here. So you'll see here when I have some questions on the board, there will be grade 10 questions, and then there'll be specific grade 11 questions that I want only the grade 11s to answer. Okay, so everyone is going to be doing the standard of questions that we're doing here, but there are some extra questions for the grade 11s, and we're also going to try and challenge the grade 11s. Like last week, Thursday, we should have seen the challenge question we gave them on speed and distance and time. So we're trying to challenge everyone in the group. Okay, just remember, guys, that this video will come up on YouTube in a couple of days, and you can go through it again and pause and rewind and go over and over again if you're not sure about a certain section. So you can watch the video to recap some of the stuff that we do cover in class. All right, so I'm going to move on to the third unit of measurement now, which is capacity. Now, capacity is a strange word. When you look at capacity, I want you to think of liquid. Yes, Samkelo, how can I help you?
Sir, if you could like go back to the kgs, grams, and
Yes,
milligrams, please.
Do you want me to redo this one?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll redo this one. Okay, let's have a look at this one again. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub out all the arrows, the numbers, and then we'll redo this whole thing. No problem. Okay. I'm sure everyone knows that the standard, or maybe you didn't know that the standard unit of measurement is grams, but let's say that the standard unit of measurement for weighing things is grams. I think you guys think that kilograms is the standard. I think you're used to kilograms, but grams is actually the standard unit. It's the first one. All right. Just like meters was the standard unit for distance, and then you move up to kilo and further, grams is the first one we're going to start with in mass. Okay. So we're going to go from grams first. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down. So I'm going to go from grams, which is a unit of measurement for mass, to a very small unit of measurement for mass, milligrams. So think of grams, you could say that an apple, maybe an apple weighs 30 grams, okay? Maybe you can get a big bag of apples and that weighs 2 kilograms, but a small little apple, maybe 30 or 50 grams, okay? Milligrams, we're talking about if you took all the seeds out of the apple and you weighed all the seeds, then you'd be talking about milligrams. So milligrams are very small, okay? So if we had to go from grams, which is about an apple's weight, or think of 50 grams as an apple, and we go down to milligrams, which is seeds, we're going smaller, so a smaller unit of measurement. And if we go from grams down to a smaller unit of measurement, all right? So let's say I have 1 gram, and I want to go to milligrams. To go from a bigger unit of measurement down to a smaller unit of measurement, you have to multiply. There are 1,000 milligrams in 1 gram, just like there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. It's the same. So to go from 1 gram to milligrams, I have to multiply by 1,000. And I will get 1,000 milligrams. Okay. So there is 1,000 milligrams in 1 gram. Okay. So when you go from a big one down to a small one, you're going to multiply. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw that jump here. I've drawn the arrow jumping down from a big one down to a small one. And I'm going to put on top here, we have to times by 1,000 if we go from this grams down to milligrams. Okay. Now, let's stay with milligrams and grams. If I want to go from milligrams back to grams, so from a small unit of mass to a bigger unit of mass, let's say I have 1,000 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, and I want to go to grams, okay? I will need to divide. So I divide this by, what is the jump? How big is the jump? It's 1,000. And I will get 1 gram. Yes, Lingiwa.
Sir,
I'm listening.
how can grams be converted to milligrams, but grams
Good morning,
are
class. I saw good day, class.
All right, I'm listening to Klingiwe. Let's just listen to Klingiwe again. Sorry,
Good day,
Klingiwe,
sir.
yes.
I don't understand how you multiply if
Klingiwe, sorry, what did you say?
please explain to me how you multiply for divide, because you're coming from a bigger thing to a smaller.
Ah, okay. I think that's where people are getting stuck. All right. Let's go back up to length. Let's go back up to length. All right. So I'm going to create a space here and let's talk about length. Okay. So if I draw a line here, and I'm going to put a mark here, and I'm going to put a mark here. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to say 0 centimeters. Okay. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to say 1 centimeter. So this is on a ruler. Okay. We're only looking at 1 centimeter on a ruler. We know that 1 centimeter is made of how many millimeters? How many millimeters in 1 centimeter? Type it out in chat. Type it out in chat, guys. How many millimeters in 1 centimeter? Thank you, Therese. 10. Okay. All right. Thanks, Therese. 10. Thanks, guys. All right. So we all know that there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this 1 centimeter up into 10. Okay. I'm going to try my best to do it equally. All right. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the middle. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So this 1 centimeter is made up of 10 millimeters. So in fact, at the bottom here, I could write 0 millimeters. And on the right-hand side at the bottom, I could write 10 millimeters. Okay, I'm sure you guys are happy with that. Okay, so if someone asked you, convert 1 centimeter into millimeters, how many millimeters are there in 1 centimeter? So convert 1 centimeter, and I want you to go to millimeters in your answer. So from centimeters to millimeters. Now you have to agree that a centimeter is a bigger unit of length than a millimeter, which is small. So we are going from a bigger unit of length to a smaller unit of length. You have to agree. And you all know that in 1 centimeter, there are 10 millimeters. Now, I know the answer is 10 millimeters, okay? So what do I have to do to that 1 centimeter to get my 10 millimeters? I have to make it big. I have to take that 1 and turn it into a 10. So I've got to multiply it by 10, okay? So 1 centimeter times 10 will give you my 10 millimeters. So going from a bigger unit of distance, which is a centimeter, down to a smaller unit of distance, which is a millimeter, there's going to be a lot more millimeters than my 1 centimeter. So I'm going to have to multiply to make this 1 bigger into a 10. Okay, I hope everyone understands that. All right, so if I take away my ruler now, okay, and instead of the ruler, I'm just going to write here centimeters. And on the left, I'm going to say millimeters over here. And on the right of centimeters, I'll put meters just for interest's sake. Okay, but we're focusing on millimeters and centimeters. A diagram to help you understand what to do to times or divide is you draw an arrow saying I'm going from this unit of centimeters down to my unit of millimeters. So my millimeters is going to be in my answer. So I'm going from the question to my answer, okay? To get to my answer from centimeters, what do I need to do? Like we saw here in this example, we need to times by 10. So what I did was I wrote here that on the arrow, to get from centimeters to millimeters, you need to times by 10. Okay, so that's why I was drawing those arrows, going from centimeters down to millimeters. If you have 1 centimeter here, okay, how many millimeters will you have? You're going to have 10. So your 1 is going to get bigger. So you're going to times it by 10. All right, so that's why I drew the arrow like that and I said times 10. Okay, now if I want to complete this diagram, but let's say I want to go from meters down to centimeters, okay, that's again from a big unit down to a smaller one. I'll write it here 1 meter to go to centimeters. All right, I want centimeters in my answer. Okay. What am I going to have to do to that meter, that 1 meter to get to? I know my answer is 100 centimeters. I know. So what do I have to do for that to that 1 meter to get 100 centimeters? I'm going to have to times it by 100. Okay. To convert my meters into centimeters. So I need to times this by 100. All right. Now, if I work the other way around, all right, so I'm going to take away this sum here. If I work the other way around, if I want to go from a smaller one, let's say, for example, 100 centimeters in the question, and they want you to go to meters in your answer, okay? Now we're going from a smaller unit of measurement up to a bigger one. Okay, we know that for every 100 centimeters, I have 1 meter. So I know the answer is 1. So what am I actually doing to this 100 to get it to become 1? I have to divide by 100. So when you go from a teeny tiny unit of length to a bigger unit of length, like a meter, not a big number, I'm talking about a unit of measurement, a meter, you will have to divide. Okay, this is why I said that when I want to jump in my diagram from centimeters to meters, I will have to divide by 100. Okay, and if I want to jump from millimeters, which are teeny tiny, up to a centimeter, which is a bigger unit of distance, I'm going to have to divide. And if the jump is 10, we know the jump is 10.
Dale,
Okay, yes, ma'am.
we have a question in the chat. Kelly is asking, but if you divide by 10 and multiply, sorry, let me just, and multiply, you still get the same answer. Please correct if I'm lost and need to be found.
Okay.
And then we have 2 hands from Sifelani and Vuyo.
All right, let's deal with the first question. Okay, let's go, let's say 10 millimeters. Okay, I'm going to go from millimeters, and the question in the exam will be convert from millimeters to centimeters. Okay, and then go from centimeters back to millimeters. Okay, so I need to go from millimeters to centimeters, and then from centimeters to millimeters. Okay, so this is how you're going to do it. All right. If you're going, like I drew in the diagram, I'll show you again. Guys, please put your microphones off. I can hear hooting in the background there. Sounds like someone's taxi is coming to collect them. The Uber is here to collect someone. If we're going from millimeters to centimeters, no, sorry, small unit of measurement, back up to a centimeter, which is a bigger unit of measurement. It was one of those arrows. It was underneath. It was divide by 10. Okay, so I'm going to apply that here. All right. So we know that we're going to divide 10 millimeters by 10, and this will give us 1 centimeter. Okay. Now, if I don't want to go from 1 centimeter back to millimeters, remember, I'm going from a bigger unit of measurement down to a smaller one. So when I drew the diagram, there were my centimeters and there were my millimeters. And I'm going from a big one down to a smaller one. We had to times by 10. So this 1 centimeter here, I will times it by 10. And guess what? I get back to my 10 millimeters. Okay. So let's put words here. This is a small unit of measurement. This is bigger. So I had to divide. And from a big one to a small one, I had to times. I know it's confusing because I'm saying go down to a small one, but times by 10. Okay, that's because there are many small pieces in one big piece. There are many centimeters in 1 meter. So if I want to go from meters down to centimeters, I have to cut that meter up into lots of pieces. Therefore, the number will become bigger. All right.
So Kelly is very happy with your answer. She says she's found now. Then I think we can move to Sifelani. They had their hand up first. So Sifelani, if you could please just unmute and ask your question.
So I wanted to ask if you could go back to the topic about body mass, because I'm not yet in this topic.
Okay. Yes. So as I explained earlier, the curriculum and the order of topics, every school is different. Some schools start with body mass, some schools start with measurements, some schools start with patterns and relationships. Okay. And body mass is part of basic number skills. So before you move into the topics, especially in grade 10, you do a lot of practice with basic number skills like BODMAS. Okay, so before you move into the major topics like measurement, finance, number, patterns and relationships, maps, plans and scale, you have to practice number skills. So BODMAS is a number skill. Now, what's going to happen is, because we've got 10 and 11 together in this group, what we're going to do is the grade 10s are going to have to listen a little bit carefully, because we're going to practice the number skills within our topics. So for example, in the topic of measurements, when we do a sum in measurements, I'm going to show you where you have to remember the BODMAS skill, and I will stop and I'll remind you of the BODMAS skill. So we're not going to do a whole lesson on the skills. We're going to incorporate the skills into the topics. Like, for example, we're talking about measurement now. And when we incorporate a skill, when we use a skill in the topic, I will stop and I'll remind you, guys, remember to use BODMAS here. And this is how you use BODMAS. Okay, so we're going to include those topics like BODMAS, but we're going to include them within the measurement topic. And I'll remind you about where they are. All right.
Then we have Vuyo. They had a hand up as well.
Yes, Vuyo.
Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Vuyo.
Hi, Vuyo.
Okay, so I think the chat is confused with how with the arrows, because last year in grade 10 we did this, and then for multiplications all the arrows went to the right, which shows that the small m millimeters goes to the bigger one, which is centimeters, and then the division goes to the left, which indicates that the bigger one goes to the smaller one. So maybe if we can like change the directions, like the top goes to the right, and then the multiplication goes to the right, and then the division goes to the left, maybe it will be a bit simpler.
Yeah, I'll have to swing the whole diagram the other way around it. We can do that. Okay, but it might even confuse the people that have already seen this. What I will do is I'll do it one more time here with measurement, because if we swing the diagram around now again, well, we're gonna have a whole lot of people confused all over again. So what I'll do is I'll start with the measurement one again, because we're used to measurements, and then off, because we're running out of time, so we'll do measurement again. I was hoping to get to capacity, but it doesn't matter if we get to capacity today. We can cover it again on Thursday. Okay. So let's start. Yes, Kia.
Then we have another question in the chat that says, is it possible to convert meter to millimeters without passing centimeter from Gosinati?
Yes, you can. Of course you can. All right. I'll show you how we do that now. Okay. So one more time, let's go through this again. So if you're looking at meters, the standard unit, in your head, you know that 1 meter is the same as 1,000 millimeters. Okay, let's use that relationship. We all know that relationship. All right, that 1 meter is equal to 1,000 millimeters. Okay, so if I want to, I'm going to take the equal sign away now. All right, I'll move this 1m a little bit to the left. All right, so someone asks you, take this 1 meter and convert it into millimeters. It's the same length. The length hasn't changed. All right, it's still 1 meter long, but instead of calling it a meter, I want you to tell me how many millimeters there are in that 1 meter. So if you measured a stick that was 1 meter long, and you told someone this stick is 1 meter long, and they say, okay, well, I don't really work with meters. You need to explain how long the stick is using millimeters. Then you can say, oh, well, fine, I can do that. I know there are 1,000 millimeters in my 1 meter. So to go from my 1 meter and change my unit of measurement, which is a meter, to a smaller unit of measurement, which is millimeters. Millimeters are small. I need a lot of millimeters to make up the same 1 meter stick. Okay. So to go from millimeters and express it to go from meters and express it into millimeters, I have to do a sum, a calculation. All right, that calculation, and I'm sure you will all agree with me. If I want to change 1 meter and express it as millimeters, I have to express it as 1,000. And how do I change 1 into 1,000? The calculation is times by 1,000. I'm sure you're all happy with that. Okay. So what I want to do now is put this information in a diagram because there are 3 different units of measurements. We've got length, we've got mass, and we've got capacity to look at. So you need a diagram that you can refer to every time in your head that you convert between any one within the distance, within mass, and within capacity. And if you look at distance only, there are 4 units of measurement here we have to look at. So I wanted a diagram so we can easily see all of this happening. All right, but I'm going to only look at meters and millimeters now. So on this diagram, what I'll do is I'll say to change my 1 meter into millimeters, if I go from meters into millimeters, all right, 1 meter into millimeters, I have to make that 1 meter. When it goes into millimeters, the number is going to get bigger, isn't it? How do we change it and make it bigger? Well, we times it by 1,000. Okay, so if you're going from meters, which is here, and you're going to millimeters, which is here, all right, meters in yellow and millimeters in green, you have to times by 1,000. Why I've got the small one on the left and the big one on the right is because I'm going from smallest to biggest, left to right. Okay, I'm going to quickly fill in the other ones because you're running out of time. If we go from meters to centimeters, we're going to times by 100. If we go from centimeters to millimeters, we're going to times by 10. Okay, you can jump from meters to millimeters. You just times by 1,000. Okay, if you want to go from millimeters back to meters now, all right, let's say you got 1,000 millimeters and someone says to you, look, I only work in meters. You're going to have to change your millimeters into meters. You're going to say, fine, I know what to do because I know every 1,000 millimeters is 1 meter. So how do I get that 1 meter? I divide by 1,000. Okay, so when you're jumping from a small unit like millimeters to meters, you must divide, and it's divided by 1,000. All right, same as from millimeters to centimeters and centimeters to meters, you divide by 10 here, sorry, and you divide by 100 here. Okay, now guys, please don't worry if you're still confused. I highly recommend that when this video comes out on the YouTube channel, you go back to it and you watch it again and think about it and draw the diagram. Do a sum, draw the diagram, and make it work for you. You'll see that it will make sense, okay? And the same method is applied in mass, and it's also applied in capacity with liquid, all right? There we see liters and milliliters and kiloliters. The same concept is applied there, okay? Sure. All right.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, Bukle, it works the same way, all right? You can see there on the board, we've got liters and milliliters. So from liters down to milliliters, you times by 1,000. If you go from milliliters to liters, you divide by 1,000. From liters to kiloliters, you divide by 1,000. And to go back from kiloliters to liters, you times by 1,000. So it's the same concept. Okay, exactly the same idea. All right. We're going to work with these next time. We're going to do a lot of calculations with these, and you'll see as we do the calculations, it will come to you. It will make a lot more sense. But please go back and watch the video, guys. We run out of time today. I hope to see you all on Thursday.
But before everyone leaves, I just need you guys to take a quick poll for us. Please make sure that you take it. It's just one quick question that they're asking you.
Okay, and we'll see you guys all again on Thursday. We're going to work with the metric system. We're going to do calculations with it. All right, so come back on Thursday again and watch how we use these steps to do calculations within the metric system.
All right, I hope everyone that was a bit worried about capacity will be back next week. Not even next week, on Thursday, so that we can do it.
All right, guys, it's time for a break.
I just need 4 more people to complete the poll. Everyone is so happy with us today. We were also glad to have you here, guys. Thank you
Yes,
so
we're
much
glad
for
to
your
have you here.
presence.
We hope you see you on Thursday. We're going to work with these systems on Thursday, and it'll make a lot more sense. So we hope to see you back here. All right. Thanks, Akile.